I'm sorry, what now?
I move that we start the presentations.
We don't have a business meeting going to make a motion, but yes, sir?
But hold on, I think, sorry, you all need to remember also that
Is anyone
he's not a
opposed
member
to
of the
letting
body.
parks?
Excuse me,
I was just
you have,
asking.
a motion has been made, is there a?
How can we make a motion if we're not officially in business? We can't.
Vote on it.
Okay, so you all have to remember this. Our parliamentarian is not a member of this board. But
So what's next steps, Rasheen?
I think someone just made a good point. We can start the presentations. We don't need to vote for that.
Okay.
Is the office, well, Plan A is here.
Yeah, that's that Park Pride though, just because I have to stay here all, I can stay here all.
Okay. Brian, you're here and ready? Kip, you ready?
Why don't you call, Sagira also and have
I'm
her
sure
on
she's on the
phone?
way.
I know, but just for courtesy to let her know we're starting the presentation.
Yeah.
I will call her right now.
Okay, thank you.
What do the bylaws say, Kyle?
3:30.
What?
What do the bylaws say for this organization?
About what?
Starting a meeting without the chair or vice chair?
So it's not the bonds. Robert's rule says if you don't have the chair or vice
Okay.
chair, the secretary calls an election to have a presiding officer. So if we don't have the secretary, we can't do that either. But we can go ahead and hear a presentation because that's not part of the business.
Gotcha. All right.
Okay, just
Is
call her
Leah
and
here?
let her know. I don't wanna be
Yeah,
disrespectful
we
to
leave
her
that
office either.
Where's Leah?
A couple of, things today, but,
I was just, I was just talking.
yeah,
Okay.
just guessing.
I mean, we can go over to, where's a quick breakfast place? We can go hang out, have a meeting.
85 was backed up too, because I came in and it was.
In addition, is there, anyone here for public comment?
Okay, hey,
Well, we can wait on that.
Okay, you ready?
yes.
I just saw Debbie walking in and I just realized something. I'm so sorry.
I have your
I don't know why we were starting at 10:30. I know we start at 10 o'clock. I am so sorry.
Can you take off the phone?
Take her off
Yeah,
speaker.
she doesn't know she's gonna be.
Okay.
I'll be down in a second.
Which presentation?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So my name is Michael Halleck. I'm President and CEO with Park Pride, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time here today to share with you a little bit about our organization. This is our Parks for All impact report that we put together that covers the work that we've done over the past 3 years for a comprehensive campaign.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
How much time does he get?
10 minutes.
Okay.
We don't have a meeting.
Here. So again, Michael Hallecky with Park Pride. Our organization's been around for 35 years. We were formed back in 1989, the same year that Piedmont Park Conservancy was created. And whereas Piedmont Park Conservancy was created for Piedmont Park, we were created for all the rest of the parks. In the city of Atlanta in 2010, we expanded into DeKalb County. Our mission is to engage communities to activate the power of parks, and we do that by working with friends of the park groups and try to bring those same kinds of services and programs to those groups that have 501c3 nonprofits that are conservancies. So we help to provide things like our fiscal sponsorship program so that friends groups can raise dollars for their parks. We have 2 landscape architects on staff that help communities develop visioning plans that are valued at $45,000. We're right now in an open call for submissions for ideas for visioning plans, and it's a 6-month process to work with a community steering committee where the community is the client. And then we have a grant making program that has really scaled up. That before the pandemic, we were awarding around $1.4 million total. This past year was $2.8 million in grants. And then with things like Moving Atlanta Forward dollars, the total dollars were $4.4 million that went out to 38 different parks all throughout the city of Atlanta. Each one of those was submitted by a Friends of the Park group. And so we're really here to help as that resource, the back office for parks, so that groups can get involved with their parks. And I'm going to let Vanessa share a little bit. She worked with me at Park Pride. Vanessa Mio is our advocacy and education specialist. And we have a handout here that shares a little bit of some of our positive collaborations with NPUs And really, we're here to kind of open up the lines of dialogue, and I hope to follow up with you guys individually in ways that we can engage with you, both with friends groups, and where we don't have friends groups, work with you and our partners with city council and that kind of thing to get groups active in getting access to these great resources. So I'll turn it over to Vanessa.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Vanessa Mio. I'm the Advocacy and Education Specialist here at Park Pride, so thankful to be here. In the packets that we provided, it should say MPU and Park
we go.
Pride. No, that's not it.
That's not it.
It was a one pager ahead of us.
It
This
is a
one?
one pager, correct, where it says strong park, strong neighborhood, strong parks. Yes, so on
Oh, yeah,
that
we got
paper, yes. So that's just highlighting some of the work that we've done within MPUs. As you can see, we have, oh, it's not up here. As you can see, we have, per MPU, the individual that we worked with, how we work with them, and how we were able to collaborate with the neighbors. So the MPU, there we go. MPU really is the catalyst of the work that we do. As you can see, like an NPUI, we have worked with Eunice Glover, who I'm sure you're very familiar with, who's an active connector with the NPUI through the various parks like West Manor Park, Physical Gates Weather Park, and amongst others. So the NPU serves as a way to apply for the grants that we offer. Michael alluded to the grant program that we have where we awarded $3.8 million to those 38 parks. So the relationship with MPU is very important. You know, you all have strong connections with your neighbors and those that they respect you all. As we are sharing the work that we do, as you all have a better understanding, you can be that person to share what it is that we do.
And I'll just share in terms of ways we can work together. One is leadership transition. As you might imagine, sometimes there's that volunteer who steps in and does everything, and then there's a life-changing event. They move, they start a family, and they don't have time. So sometimes NPUs can be helpful in trying to find that next leader who wants to be that park person within your neighborhood. We help to build community capacity. So again, looking at ways we can work together in places where we don't have Friends of the Park groups. I will point out that it's Friends of the Park as opposed to Friend of the Park. So we really try to go beyond just the idea that it's one person. It's really trying to get the community involved. And it's really kind of the idea that much in the way that parks are inclusive spaces where everyone's welcome, the Friends group similarly should be that kind of thing. And then last of all, I'll mention, as Friends groups are putting together their grant applications, they often get letters of support from their NPUs, neighborhood associations, and so you can also help to socialize ideas in that Friends group and make sure that they're getting that larger community involved and weighing in to make sure that those resources come into your NPU, into the parks there. So those are really the ways that we like to work with you, and we're open for business. So any way that you'd like to kind of work with us, we welcome the opportunity.
I need to connect you with several parks with the infrastructure bond money that showed up from 2014. There's been a new group that volunteers are available working. They didn't know the old plans. So the bond was set on the old plans and now the new group. So
Yeah.
I need to connect you with five parks.
Yes, and we have the ability to leverage matching dollars from private dollars for instances like that where there are public dollars that are committed. So we'll have sometimes situations where a playground is being funded with community block grant funds, and the Friends group will come forward to get shade and benches for the parents and things like that. So we love those different opportunities to leverage more dollars and figure out where there are dollars, and that also helps to get them sometimes unstuck because there's the opportunity cost that if we don't jump now, that we don't get that chance to leverage additional dollars.
If I used Vanessa's email or your email?
Vanessa would be a good place to start now. Yes.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Do you help with beautification and maintenance of parks?
So we help with beautification, and often groups will come together with planting plans, and we have small change grants that are smaller grants that we do on a rolling basis, and many times groups will come with ideas of looking at an entryway into a park and how to beautify those areas. We also show up with what we refer to as the Green Shirt Army come budget season and make sure that folks understand that we really need to have those maintenance dollars so that the Parks Department can do those types of things. We have volunteers that help with cleanups and things like that, but that doesn't replace the need for people to cut the grass, tip the trash cans, and to deal with those day-to-day kinds of things.
Do you have
So
someone that's that can be in contact with the parks we have in our MPUs?
which MPU are you?
T,
T.
yep.
So some of the parks,
I'd have to get you a list, and I don't remember right offhand, but we've got a couple of areas
Yeah.
that could use a little attention, and you guys have helped in the past. It just has kind of fallen off a little bit, so I just want to see you
Yeah.
circle back
so
around.
reach out to us and we'll connect. And one of the things that we also do is make sure that the community is kind of connecting with the folks that work specifically on the maintenance for your parks and that kind of thing, to kind of strengthen those relationships and figure out ways that when volunteers are coming in, it's additive. So we're co-located with the Parks Department, so sometimes when folks on the outside are trying to get to someone and they don't know who to talk to, we're also that wayfinder that tries to make sure that folks are talking to each other.
Okay, great. I love your information.
Great,
Thanks.
thank you. Yes. And then you.
I have a suggestion. I would like you to ask you to stop having the annual conference at the Atlanta Botanical Garden. If you want to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, that's not the place for Parks for All. It's an exclusive, expensive, elitist organization, and they take private land to build a parking deck to charge us to use. So maybe consider someone else, because I won't go there. So I don't go to your conference ever.
Okay. I appreciate that feedback. You, sir.
I was just gonna say, to echo that, NPUP, Lewis Woodson,
Yeah.
I'm sure he had you all on speed dial, as much as he talks about his connection with Park Pride.
He was connecting with Vanessa before she came to Park Ride, so yeah.
And he, it has also helped us, I still think that our parks, we have really amazing, beautiful parks in PUP that are still not getting their fair share of funding from the city. That's what it is, but the connection with Park Pride has also helped us get other resources outside the city. We've got grants, we've partnered with other businesses that have given us quite a bit of money. They've also, done great things, and Park Pride has been a great partner with us, helping us fill in those gaps because we are not getting the funding from the city that we should be getting.
And I'll mention that our efforts have both challenged the city to provide funding through Park Pride that are restricted to qualified census tracts, and that we've matched those dollars with philanthropic dollars. So there was a time when Park Pride would have a signature project in English Avenue or Vine City as kind of the one big thing we were doing that kind of was our effort to use the bully pulpit. And, since the pandemic, we have really shifted our approach and really tried to get more dollars from both the city and philanthropy, specifically to address the issue of park equity, the idea that everyone deserves access to a quality park regardless of race and income or zip code. And so, again, citywide organization, we're providing grants in every council district, and we've done grants in every MPU. This past grant cycle, those 38 grants, 60% of those were in qualified census tracts. So we've made a priority, and we're much more transparent in trying to make sure that rather than us picking one park that gets kind of the full treatment, we're there to help communities to make sure that we're trying to meet them where they're at. You, sir.
As you work with the Parks Department.
Yes.
One of the ways that I think you can help communities is to try to figure out a better way that the Parks Department charges project management fees for organizations. Some of the improvement projects that were in NPUB raised an enormous amount of money to do some improvements to the parks, and then found out they had to raise another $100,000 for project management fees that go to the city.
Yeah.
Project management is extremely important.
Yeah.
But that takes a huge chunk out of how much we can effectively do to.
I completely agree, and I think I heard the buzzer, so this might be my last comment, but I will share that much in the way that there have been challenges with MARTA, whereas they've been expanding and they haven't had the skills and the expertise to do that because they haven't built in so long. Recently, with things like the Moving Atlanta Forward Bond, our efforts that are going to a new level, there are more capacities, and I do feel like they're learning things as they go. And I feel like the Parks Commissioner, Justin Cutler, I was part of the search committee that brought him. And I find that we're doing a much better job of working with the city than working around the city. And I think those are the types of things that I think they're building. They have more support for both maintenance to kind of increase their capacity. And Commissioner Cutler talks about the idea in year one, you sleep, year two, you creep, and then year three, you grow. So they're building capacity both at the higher level as well as the folks that are cutting the grass and taking the trash cans. But a big area that they lack right now is project management and then the funding to make it so that they have that internal capability. When I came to Park Pride 11 years ago, they had landscape architects on staff. These days, they're very understaffed in that area, and the project management side of things is something that is lacking as well. So I think that's something that I agree with, and I think we're working to help it. You can't have a world-class park system with a subpar parks department. So we're really trying to help be those advocates to make sure they get the resources they need, but then they need to go ahead and build those capacities in the way that you're describing. Yes.
How do you become a friend of the park? How do you accept?
Want to take
Yeah,
that?
so every year we have registration that's in the month of February. So all you have to do is go online. If you haven't, let me back up. If you have a group of at least 3 people in the neighborhood who are interested in improving the park, you can then fill out an application on our website. If you look under like community services on the website, or if you just email me and I could kind of guide you along the way. Filling out that, it's free of charge. And we'll guide you along the way, provide you with resources and provide you with a calendar of events and things that we have coming here. So that's just step 1, registering the group, and we can provide you further information.
The other thing is, well, if you reach out to us now and you look at the parks you're wondering about, they may have a friends group you're just not aware of. So how do we make sure that we're getting folks involved and again, kind of building that tent around that group and that community? And sometimes someone has registered, but they're not active. And if there's folks who want to get involved and do things, we try to kind of bring that together so that we're getting folks who actually want to engage for their community, that they leverage our programs and services.
Do you have memorandum of understandings on file for the park?
So we have a contract with the city of Atlanta that allows us to provide these services. And for most of the friends groups largely don't have MOUs that are in place. Many of the conservancies do, and we kind of play that role as that intermediary where there's 145 friends groups that we work with in Atlanta and DeKalb.
Okay.
So oftentimes you don't need an MOU in order to do that kind of work unless they're bringing in and raising dollars for paid staff. I think that there are ways that we kind of provide that kind of intermediary kind of role. I'll also mention that I see it as a continuum. So Candler Park began as a friends group. They have a conservancy now. Chastain Park, you'd be surprised, began as a friends group and over time developed a 501c3, and they had dollars that they were raising through our fiscal sponsor account. Once they became their own group, they took those dollars out and that they were running those types of efforts. So we're really that group. There's some groups that aren't looking to kind of build that level of infrastructure, and we're there to help them, and that's really kind of the core of our efforts. But there are groups who have visions and aspirations, and oftentimes folks will come and they're really ready to kind of create a conservancy now because they think they'll file their papers and the money comes rolling in. And no, you really need to build the capacity in the community and build trust and get some projects under your belt. So we help groups figure that out. We have a leadership development program that we started through this Parks for All campaign called the Park Stewardship Academy, which brings together a cohort of 12 park champions that are distributed throughout the city of Atlanta, a couple of folks from DeKalb, that are representative of the larger area. So we make sure geographically it's dispersed, oversampling in areas that are historically underinvested. And we're finding that that's also a different model that's not just focused on getting a grant, but giving folks the wherewithal so that they become the one who knows how to navigate the city. They know how to work with Park Pride and access our programs. They know how to advocate and speak up when they're not getting the attention they deserve. So that's another thing just to know. If you know of a park that needs help, or it feels like you have some folks involved, but they're really not firing on all pistons, that Park Stewardship Academy can take someone who's just like, I don't have time. Well, we need to find the person who does have time, and then we need to put them in an environment where they can thrive and develop a network. So we do that kind of thing as well.
Since you have a tenant for a while and you jumped over to someone else who hadn't been acknowledged, so let's go with this. Thank you.
Yes.
And you were going to miss out on the applause for your organization, because I have nothing but praise for how you helped MPUQ and establish their only park and support and basically anything good that you can think of. That's what you guys have done, and I really appreciate you from the heart of NPUQ, all of us do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
West Cascade is one of those things in my 10-year Park Pride that I'm most proud of actually taking a place. It was a park desert.
Instrumental. You guys were instrumental in guiding us, assisting us with funding and projects, and advice. So we really applaud you, and we think that you're serving the public very well, and thank you again.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me a while to get to you.
You almost missed that.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin?
I'm curious about the nature of the relationship of your group to green spaces that are not technically parks. So like the waterworks green space, for example.
So we do allow groups that it's kind of the Doug test that work in different areas of watershed properties, that we have Friends of Waterworks Park and have done fundraisers with them and that kind of thing. There are certain conditions, so we require areas to be publicly accessible in perpetuity. And if there are places that and there are ways that we've worked with, I can think of Tapestry Green Space that's over in the Orwood Park neighborhood, where they created a friends group and again have access to things like the fiscal sponsorship effort to kind of raise dollars. So we do try to work with groups along those lines. There's also some places that are owned by the Parks Department, but they're parks and holdings, so they're not open as a public park. And we will allow groups to access our services as a friends group that's working towards that end of making it that way. And that's how Waterworks started. That they've done actually a lot of good things that are over there. And there's the CID over there that's been very active and has received grants. The big play structure that's over there, we help to provide grant funding.
So there are also very small green spaces around the city. You have like a minimum size that you would consider.
It's more of the level of community engagement. There is a program that we've helped to support called Adopt a Park that allows places where if there's a landscaping company or a realtor that wants to kind of adopt and manage those different areas. And during the subprime recession and parks did not have the ability to touch all the different spaces, that we help them with kind of a basic program like that. But we found that sometimes, size is important, but I think of a Grove Park, there's a bunch of these smaller little areas, and I understand they do a taste of Grove Park using some of those little parklets with the idea that in that neighborhood, there's a park outside your door. We look at in an example like that, if we did a visioning, it wouldn't just be Grove Park proper, it would be those other smaller areas as well. So we try and look at what's the benefit to the community, what are the ways that can be used for activation. And I think we're willing to work with smaller spaces and give them access to both the Friends of program as well as grant dollars as well. So good question. Mrs. Lee.
I'd also like Mr. Toomer will say that we've had an excellent relationship with Park Pride since 2005. And we have a small pocket park that you have close to Triangle, as well as Collier Park. I think we received close to what, $600,000 for work there.
Yeah.
So we have found that they have been excellent resources. Even going to a 7:30 a.m. meeting to meet other park advocates and people who are interested in their parks. But we've gained a lot from our experiences and from you have the conference where we get a lot of information from.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mrs. Lee. That means a lot.
Thank you all. We appreciate you coming here on a Saturday. Can you repeat your contact information if people have more questions?
Sounds great. I really enjoyed the conversation. This has exceeded my expectations of actually having some back and forth. So I wish you the best in the rest of your meeting.
Wow, will you repeat your contact information just in case people have questions?
Yeah, so my email's on the bottom of that form, Vanessa@parkpride.com. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out.
And if you want to send a message to me, I'm michael@parkpride.org, so you can find me as well. You're welcome to copy me on any messages to Vanessa if you like. I just want to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bonnie, so sorry. I don't know why, after all these years, I thought we were starting at 10:30. So when I got here, I thought I was on time until Ruben called me. So my apologies. It's an off time. It is 10:38. I'd like to officially call this APAB meeting on Saturday, September 21st to order. We need to adopt the agenda. I would like to make an amendment. There should be under unfinished business, our ACRB appointment.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with that one addition under the unfinished business ACRB appointment.
Second.
Rebecca, second.
I heard a lot of seconds, but Rebecca said her name, so. So are there any opposition? All right, so The agenda is adopted with unanimous consent. And I'm sorry, when I call the meeting to order, we do have a total quorum with 18 members. So approval of the voting report from August 17th, 2024. It should be in your packet. You have a chance to look at that. And I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, Rasheen Hunter makes a motion to approve the voting report for Saturday, August 17th, 2024.
Second. Second.
All right, the motion has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Approved by unanimous consent. All right, so we've had the Park Pride update. Nate, come on up for your Plan A update, please.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, public comment.
And you have 10 minutes, sir.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, this is wrong. This one, right there. I'm sorry. Is there any public comment? Okay. Public comment?
Yeah, I guess this is probably the right time. So I was curious to know, because I've run into this now 3 times in my MPU, if anyone else had encountered industrial deed restrictions in their MPUs. I kind of suspect this may be a citywide problem, which is why I'm asking, because I've run into it 3 times. But I don't know that for sure. So if you have, or if you suspect perhaps you have, please reach out to me.
Can you explain what that is?
Industrial properties that are sold with deed restrictions that prevent them from redeveloping as residential homes.
Cooper Street is an example.
What was that example?
Cooper Street,
Fairmont and
Vermont, Cooper.
in my MPU is one example.
There's
Top Golf is another
Yeah,
example.
environmental covenants, brownfield cleanups, they clean up to industrial standards, so you can't build residential. So those are environmental covenants.
But it takes land out of residential use in perpetuity, even though it could be remediated for residential use. And essentially, I mean, I kind of get the impression that it usurps the city's zoning authority, because now the city can't possibly ever zone that land for anything other than the use that it's been prescribed for the deed restriction.
Mr. Martin, we can actually talk about this as part of the update, or we can talk about it in the quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something we need to discuss here. It's just something I don't know who else in the city has encountered this, but I would like to talk to you if you have. So I was just announcing.
Public comment? That's public comment, yeah. We haven't had any public comment. He raised his hand as you were standing up as a citizen, right, Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other public comment? All right, we can go on.
Great, I know I have 10 minutes and the slides are in your handout, so you can provide in more detail than what I'll present. Also, I'll be here next month. We did a little bit deeper into other things, and I also have a few other education opportunities over the next 30 days. So I'll go quickly, I'll highlight some things about the comprehensive plan. For those who don't know, comprehensive plan is a citywide plan for land use, housing, transportation. We've been going around the community for the past several months, so I'll give you an update of those engagement numbers. And we have our next meeting, October 10th, on top of Bank of America building, 55th floor. You're going to be able to see almost the entire city. The corridors, the tree canopy, the church steeples, the belt line, MARTA. You'll be able to see everything and talk to transportation planners, housing planners, land use planners. So please come to that meeting. It'll be really exciting. Please let your neighbors know and your MP members parking situations. So again, the comprehensive plan is that citywide policy for all these types of city building activities, from housing to transportation, economic development. Now, we've been talking with your residents for the past several months about land use and zoning. But we're now going into the other chapters over the next 6 months for our public engagement. We are framed, we have a vision of Atlanta city design. What's that? Aim at me. Aim at you. Okay. Atlanta city design 2017 codified this vision of the city growing over the next generation or two. The comp plan and many other plans like the Park Pride plan stuff provides that kind of like bring it to the neighborhoods, that vision. Then zoning, financing, all the stuff we're seeing with affordable housing investments, Invest Atlanta doing things about like grocery stores. That's like the next level of getting things built in our city. Like I mentioned, we've been talking a lot about land use over the past several months. We've been talking about zoning, the zoning update. Again, I just want to continue to emphasize, in the comp plan, there's a land use approach. This zoning ordinance is the tool to implement that approach. Just another way of kind of framing the discussion here, because there's a lot of things being asked of all of us, providing comment on the comp plan, providing comment on the new zoning ordinance. Now, we've been doing comp plan work for 50 years with the NPUs. You all celebrated 50 years. I'm also celebrating the 50th year of doing comp plans. So I just want to emphasize that we have been working together for 50 years. Now, back in the 70s and 80s, there were planners doing this work like every year with the NPUs. In the mid-1980s, there was like liaison planners, like I am a liaison to Jim and QD. We used to have a different relationship. We're trying to reset comp plan work with this comp plan update. The zoning is also 50 years old. 1973 was our zoning ordinance. Then we worked for many years doing a zoning diagnostic, going through 3 drafts of the zoning ordinance, and then by 1982, we had a new zoning ordinance. So we've been working with like this kind of zoning ordinance and its kind of creation since early 1970s as well. When we were doing this work in the 70s and 80s, the city was quite different. I grew up in Pittsburgh, as I mentioned to you a couple months ago. I saw my steel mills, my neighborhood go down the toilet. And I know that happened in a lot of places around America. Inner cities were hollowing out, whether it's race, class, economics, whatever you want to tie why we started suburbanizing our nation. We were doing that zoning work and comp plan work when we were losing population. The city was grasping at straws, looking at office development, figuring out how to do MARTA. I mean, these were the sketches of the MARTA stations that are going to be revolutionizing urban city living, but in parking lots around Martin. Look what we live with today. So we were zoning and comp plan working differently 50 years ago. And we were in a very different context now. I mean, we are kicking the butt out of the suburbs for the past 2 years. We've been outpacing this suburban growth in the Atlanta region. Now, back in the 70s, we lost all this population. We were like a third of the population of the region, and now we're like 8%. I just came back from Seattle that has 750,000 people. That's what ARC is forecasting as our population 25 years from now. It is very different to be in a region with a strong urban core than what Atlanta is today. I just want to highlight that we are in a different time, and we are in a great opportunity now with that framing of Atlanta city design, the diagnostic of the zoning started back in 2016, and where we're at today with the draft zoning ordinances in front of us. And then when we started thinking about updating the comp plan back in 2021, we started to kind of make some minor changes and started having some more conversations about resetting the comp plan. Now we're working really hard to make both the comp plan and the zoning ordinance laser focused on user friendliness and providing both the approach and the tool for a different Atlanta over the next decades. So I just want to kind of highlight some of the working drafts that we're trying to do to improve both documents. Now, as I mentioned, we've been all over the city for the past several months. I got people from like over 180 different neighborhoods come to in-person meetings. We met about 2,500 people, and that's still didn't talk to 530,000 people. So I'm really trying to get the word out. So I definitely want to talk about how NPUs can help us spread the word, and please continue to come to our meetings. A lot of comments on our maps. First round of meetings was like, we want your street knowledge of what types of development and growth you want to see in your neighborhood. We introduce you to development patterns that are replacing the current land use approach that has future land use and character areas. And we're just talking about development patterns for this new comprehensive plan. So we had that as our first round of work. Second round, we highlighted 40 spots around the city where we're like, all right, as a project team, we know where the zoning code is kind of going with new zoning districts. We know these development patterns and how they're replacing things that we have today, like low density commercial. Back in the 70s and 80s, we thought having separation between commercial and other uses was a good idea, chasing those corporate 500 companies. We got rid of that. There's no more commercial, residential, mixed-use development patterns. We got rid of commercial, and it is just purely mixed use. The idea that people want to live closer to places they want to go to. We heard so much during the first 2 rounds. I would like to walk my kid to their doctors. I would like to go to a grocery store without getting in my car. That was probably the most commented thing that we heard, and we felt like this getting rid of commercial and going to mixed use was a great idea. Throughout the city, we've had general mixed use, especially around the Beltline, especially around our corridor. Mixed use, is that low density, is that high density? We got rid of that general mixed use. It could be low density, it could be medium density. So we had like 40 spots around the city where the translation of what we have today to the new development patterns wasn't direct. So we got a lot of comments through online and in-person engagement for round 2, and I'll show you how we're going to present all that feedback to you all in the next round coming up. So next round of meetings, we are opening the floor to all the chapters in the plan. Our meetings are going to be organized around different chapter topics. There'll be an open house, like first 45 minutes, then a kind of panel discussion about a hot topic and housing for one night and transportation another night, and then kind of close up the night with a 30-minute poster gallery open house. And those will go through early February. I'll also highlight some of the other things we're doing. I'll hand you the fact sheet. Please take some when you leave today as well. It's also on our website. You can see the different dates and the different chapters we're highlighting. But please, you can't come to like the transportation chapter, but you want to talk about transportation, or you can make the urban design night come. We're going to have posters for all the chapters of all the at all the meetings. In our first meeting at Bank of America, that's an open gallery the whole night. So you'll be able to talk to all of us planners on any topic you want. The map here shows round 1, 2, and 3. And I just want to highlight when Fietta and I presented to the public, to you all, like a year ago, we said we're going to be in your MPUs at least twice for the comp plan. And I'm holding my promise true. We're going to be in every MPU by the end of January, early February. We'll be at every MPU at least twice. I've already mentioned the format, but I just want to highlight again. You can provide your comments on every chapter, the vision, the policies, the actions. So definitely keep an eye out for the draft chapter will come out, the draft plan will come out on October 10th as well. Be the online comments, the conveyo that you all have been working with, both the comp plan and the zoning. It'll be the same format online, but you can also provide in-person comments. So the conversations with planners are small kind of focus group discussions. I have over 20 spots around the city that I'm booked to meet with you and your neighbors in small meetings. To talk about anything you want in this comp plan draft. Talk about your development pattern map, talk about transportation issues in your neighborhood. So you'll start hearing from me. Please come to that meeting, but I'll follow up with you on individually. Lots of outreach. Amy, you mentioned you saw the bus and the or the transit signs. We are ambassadors. We had another great ambassador training with like 30, 50 of us. So we have about 100 ambassadors total in our orange shirts. We'll be at these meetings and pop-ups. Again, talk to the Bank of America building October 10th. Great views. Here's just a draft. You can see some of the printed slides, how we're taking your round 1 and round 2 information, presenting it in a way that lets you know, like, hey, these are how many people we heard from. These are the recommendations of the translation of the development patterns. And here's where we're at. This is a great example of showing where we got a lot of feedback on going to medium density mixed use, where currently it's just general mixed use. Here, another great example of showing how small area plans that were recently adopted supported what the community commented on. And then next month, I will go through some of those other big topics that we heard during this first 2 rounds. Yep.
That was a bell, so you got it.
I got it. We have a lot of things to do with the MPUs for the comp planning. MPU policies have been around since the 1980s. As I mentioned, back in the 1980s, we had planners writing your MPU policies. Since then, the MPUs have been tasked to do that. And there's a lot of policies, some that go back to like 1980 with the planners, right? So we really want to help you all improve your MPU policies in this comp plan update. So there will be a training October 3rd. We had a virtual training before, about 80 of you attended. Now we emailed you, your MPU chairs, your land use and zoning committees, leads. Please try to make that meeting. It'll be 2 hours long, over an hour of Q&A probably. So you can definitely ask questions, get into the weeds. If you didn't get an invite, QR code's there, but please also reach out to me if you want to get the Zoom RSVP. It'll be recorded. And again, I'll highlight, or I'll go into some of those details in the next October APAB meeting. Then December 12th, we're going to go really deep into your MPU policies and small area planning implementation of the comp plan starting mid next year. Planitforall.com is our website. Again, online drafts will be on there starting around October 10th. You can comment on the maps at the end of January, comment on the chapters at the end of February. That's where we're at. We are so tied to the hip with the zoning code update. There's a zoning meeting December 4th, and then I think there's a zoning meeting February 3rd. Don't quote me on those dates, but it's in December and February, so I'm in between those meetings. And again, Bank of America, October 10th, and I want to meet with every NPU individual. I want to get coffee, or just Jim, if you want to get bourbon, totally cool with that. I definitely after 5. Yeah. People, I maxed out my comp time. Like I am not even in comp time mode anymore. I want to get a comp plan that reflects all the hard work that we are doing in our neighborhoods and what we're doing in the departments. I don't really care. You can ask me to come to your church on a Sunday. I don't care. I want to hear more from you as a person and as a neighbor. So please, if you have a land use or zoning group, that chair wants to meet with me, let's do it. If you want to meet with me as an APAB rep or a chair, let's do it. I want to hear from you, but sometimes these formal meetings, these online chats or online comments, just don't do it. Finally, September 30th, we are back in business in South Downtown. I work in the Office of Design. Our studio space flooded this time last year. We are back. So we are having an open house September 30th. We had a little stop open yesterday with parking day. It was pretty well attended, but please come meet us at our place at 235 Mitchell, and that's it. Now, I have t-shirts, and I have yard signs and stickers, and I have these fact sheets. I'm going to stick around to the end of the meeting. Please come over and talk to me. We can talk about how we can start spreading the word. We definitely want more than 2,500 people to show up for in-person meetings. We got 9 community meetings, over 20 conversations with us. We should definitely get close to like 5,000 to 10,000 people in-person touches. So that's my goal. Thank you. Now, again, I'll be back here next month. So if you want to get into the nitty-gritty details, I'm not going to have a presentation pretty much next month. You can ask me questions then. But if you have questions about participation, ask me now, or I'll wait to the end.
I know who do. Mr. Penny and then Mrs. King.
No, I think she was first.
Oh, okay.
Ms. King was.
Ms. King, then Ms. Penny.
Okay, thank you. When the CDP is brought in, city council votes on it. When we look at zoning and we say it disagrees with the CDP and turn down a zoning variance or application, and then city council approves and says, can't get the right word, says that it's legal, how does that work?
It's legal and we, because sometimes those zoning cases are delayed because then we have to go back and do an update to the comp plan. That's the legal mechanism.
Okay.
So when you come in for rezoning, it doesn't match the comp plan, that applicant has to spend another 3 months going through the process of doing a land use change. And then you get the zone.
Okay, I have a specific case I want to ask you about at another time.
I just want to thank you for all of your hard work. However, I'm disappointed because I guess participation in community engagement in my particular MPU has been minimal.
Which
at best, MPUJ.
Okay.
So just looking over some of the conversations with planners, there's West End, Westview, MPUT. There's nothing wrong with that, but MPUJ butts close enough to MPUT There's also development and, I guess there's also development coming and projected to come along Donald Lee Hollowell. There's a Donald E. Hollowell, I guess, I want to call it a group, association, where we could get some engagement through there, because that particular road butts up to maybe 3 or 4 MPUs.
Yeah, every MPU is totally, reach out to us, we'll set up another meeting.
So I'm reaching out to you now,
That means
personally, in order to get more participation. I've already spoken to our chairperson, and she's willing to give you space even in the general body meeting.
Great.
I've also spoken to our land use chairperson. He's even willing to give you space during our monthly meeting.
Great.
There are several,
That's what I want.
there are several other locations within MPU that we can pull from other, in MPUJ, that we can pull from other MPUs as well. We have plenty of meeting spaces.
Great.
The limitation that we have is you're asking, I guess my particular MPU, where the majority of the people that come or attend our meetings, there are seniors, and they're challenged as far as driving to some of your locations where you have your meetings. You're asking them to drive to Bank of America to meet all of these department leaders, and they have to pay for parking, and they have to do all of that challenge to get there.
We're working on getting MARTA passes, right?
Well, even that, just that is somewhat of a challenge for those who are handicapped as well.
Yeah, okay.
So we're asking you to come to us somewhere specifically in a location that we can pull enough people so that we can get enough representation from that particular area as well.
That's fine. I want that for all the MPUs.
And if you're sticking around,
Yeah.
I would love to have a conversation
Yeah,
with you.
virtual meetings, go into your neighborhood, group meetings, find another place, even if it's like a morning meeting, like some of those conversations with planners are in the morning, some of them in the evening, some of them are on lunch. We're really trying to spread it out time-wise, so people can come if they can't come to an evening meeting. But yes, we have 6 months to meet with you all. We are completely want to do that for Jay. We got plenty of time to do so.
And I'm not asking just specifically for Jay. I'm asking for, I'm just using Jay as the example.
And
I just know on the side of town that I live on, I have not seen as many particular meetings.
Something that, that came to mind when you did the presentation a couple of weeks ago. Have you all actually specifically gone to senior centers or senior towers to present at the senior towers?
Not the towers, but nearby rec centers, but not the towers. We've been balancing, because we got some feedback on like being in private spaces. It's not really a public meeting then. So I'm trying to really balance that as well.
Mr. Martin?
As a matter of policy, we would like to promote mixed uses, but also as a matter of policy, we continually decry spot zoning, which would be a great way to create mixed uses. And so I'm curious as to what the background is there. How do we end up at this place?
That might be a way to, so like how to get into spot zoning? We're doing more spot zoning?
Well, I mean, if we were doing spot zoning, we would be creating a mix of uses, and we want to create a mix of uses, but we want to do it without spot zoning. That seems to be where we are, and it seems to be a very strange place to be.
Yeah, that seems to be where we're going with the new zoning code as well, mixing those uses even within a building.
But I mean, if we do it with just a free-for-all, right? If we say, well, if you build anything you want anywhere, then we've sort of done away with zoning, as opposed to if we do it with spot zoning, where we still have zoning, but we are now creating mixed uses.
Let me think through that. Let me think through that for that training and see if I can hammer out some answers to that.
Okay.
Scott, you had your hand raised, and then Mr. Hunter, and then we're going to wrap the questions, but then Mr. Dobbs made a good point. We actually need a whole meeting for this, like outside of just a presentation. So what I would like to suggest is that if you all are open to it, we can schedule a time where we do a work session with you to work through some of these deeper dive questions, and also think through our role in helping helping the engagement process. Mr. Hassan and then Mr. Hunter.
I just want to second the point about senior centers. Great point, especially in East Atlanta, NDUW used to meet at Brandon Towers. And technically it's a private space, but it's the kind of space that would be totally happy to host public meetings. They have, I don't like to say ample parking, but also good MARTA access by bus. And they're just good places to get the kind of engagement you need. So I would absolutely second that. Go to senior centers as much as you can, engage with them as much as you can. That's where you're going to get some of the best outreach. And I know Brandon Towers and East Atlanta would be very open.
I was just going to say, I get that you're trying to go into public spaces, but in terms of even some of the advertising that you've done, have you all considered some of the probably consider alternative methods, such as living in Southwest Atlanta? There are just pockets of places that are special that have always been places to get the word out, right? Such as what the Beautiful did for the civil rights movement. These places are still echo chambers for those places. The churches, some of the bigger churches, and in terms of reaching out to that network of other organizations, where, like the other concerned pastors and stuff like that, like really getting out the word through those areas will also help reach out to some of those people that are not coming to those meetings, because and also from those people, it matters coming from them, that you all need to pay attention to, you all need to participate.
We've been working with the Interfaith Mayors Group, so all of that outreach has gone through that network. And then the other, please, if you have spaces in your neighborhood, in your MPUs, let me know. And if you're like the best person to introduce me to that property manager or senior housing, those conversations with planners are meant for these types of meeting points that we're talking here. I am trying to be on the corridors. We heard a lot of comments of different types of uses should be on this block. And I found a meeting space near that spot to have a conversation. Some of those meeting spaces are private places. Because these are going to be like RSVP, like getting those, J people to that meeting. I want to work with the J outreach group to get people to those meetings. And because they're private spots, I've been asked to have RSVPs and then provide, for security reasons, who's coming the day before. So I know when I'm coming to a senior tower, I'm going to have 20 people. A lot of those conversations with planners when we were in MPU, whatever, and IH, where else, K or Q, like we were there and 2 people showed up. So this time around, we're really trying to work with the networks of the neighborhoods and MPUs to get people to RSVP beforehand, so we know that we're coming in, talking to 10, 12 people, 20 people, before we go there and spend the afternoon waiting for people to come by. So we're going to work on that with you all, and you'll see from our team those personal emails, those personal phone calls. Again, copy with me. I can come to you at any time. So yeah, this next 6 months, we're really trying to double that effort for each triple.
This last question is okay.
Nate, first, thank you for your presentation. I think this is what my 3rd time hearing, but ultimately, we have been receiving presentations from about the trails, from the Path Foundation, about the trails. We got the zoning 2.0, and of course, Plan A. Somewhere after we had all of these various new meetings, is it possible that all of these different factions can have a meeting together so people can start to try to piece this together in their minds? I've been to all of the meetings and I've talked to all of you, and we're trying to get this information back to my MPU. They'll ask a question that, well, why is it we're doing this if we're doing this? It has gotten to the point where the city is confusing the citizen. And we really need some kind of conclusion here that everybody can understand what the Path Foundation is doing, how that impacts to Park Pride, working with us with the parks and the trails. And it's a lot that the city has dumped on us in the past, several months.
Just completely agree. As a project manager for this particular plan that's trying to connect all that stuff together, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have a gallery and have the trail people come by at our meetings and be there. I'll reach out to Michael at Park Pride, because Park Pride is in the comp plan. So to your point, we're trying to make that network gallery point in between or sandwiching the panel discussions for transportation night and economic development night to address that. And also the second meeting, that vision of Atlanta, the goals for Plan A. I have pitched to my leadership exactly your request. Bring like the Parks Commissioner, Planning Commissioner, Transportation Commissioner, have a panel discussion and talk about how they're all working together.
And
what all this stuff
and
is.
moving Atlanta forward. We need them there too, because they're doing something in our parks and things that everybody's doing all this stuff. So
Yeah,
they
so
need to be.
I pitched that idea and I see what happens, but I can't promise. I know you do so much, but I'll relay that I heard that late that. That second meeting, that was kind of the intent, because ATL starting when they present in January, in December, it's their meeting date. That's kind of like their kickoff for the comprehensive transportation plan, which we haven't updated since 2018. And that's their plan A. So that's gonna be another planning thing. And then you're gonna hear also about resilience from the Resilience Office, their new climate change strategy that rolls out at their January meeting. There's more stuff coming.
And let's add that to our meeting agenda too, because I can move that forward easily, more easily than you probably could go in the route that you're going.
The requests.
But, yeah.
We meet on Tuesday morning.
Okay.
Well, that was gonna be my next question was, do you need a letter of recommendation or support from?
That would be lovely.
If that's something that you.
That would be lovely. If the sheriff is making a motion, that would be amazing.
Okay, do we want to? As a guest, then I'm mixing.
I'm sorry.
So, so essentially, as we just discussed, remember when Director Madison came earlier this year, she said that they were gonna have a comprehensive transportation plan. And she's gonna try to work as closely as possible with the CDP and be at the same places, so people didn't have to go to multiple meetings. You have Trails ATL, which is a different plan. We just had a presentation from Park Pride. We have the zoning 2.0 restructuring happening, and then they just mentioned climate resilience.
Housing,
strategy.
all the housing stuff,
Housing.
Atlanta, you know,
And so.
And small business.
small business, Main Street.
Small business plan, okay, Main Street.
And keep in mind, this is the busiest time of year for humble use.
Yes.
We have elections and it's
bylaws.
So with that being said, the suggestion was get all these entities together to discuss and be able to present people in a way that they can see where they all move into the comprehensive development plan or support or are at least acknowledged and understand that, you know, there's a piece in the transportation plan that might affect the CDP and vice versa. So Nate said that he has actually requested like a panel discussion with different commissioners. And Ms. Phillips also mentioned including the Atlanta board, because that's another piece that's going to it. So Nate has put in the request, and so my question for the board is, do we want to submit a letter of support for that type of panel discussion where people can get a broad view of where all these pieces fit?
Madam Chair.
I would suggest that we submit a recommendation to baseball staff. We are in favor of this illegals. As opposed to
making a motion.
Yeah, we can make a motion. All right, so then, well, do we want to do the split recommendation? I guess whichever is best. All right, well, then I make a motion that we send a letter of recommendation to, yes, send it to Nate or to Nate and copy his.
Being Leah is great. Make sure Commissioner Prince gets
That APAB is in favor of. How did you?
our second meeting, like you guys are really excited about our second meeting, which is our vision, goals, planning. Yeah, having that citywide conversation with leadership about how this is all tied
Just
together.
requesting coordinated engagement or coordinated.
That's all in
different ways. I would word it as simply as you can, and then when you draft the recommendation itself, you can include.
Madam Chairman, one meeting be enough to incorporate? It doesn't seem like it. But
As a presentation of how it all works together, and then the other initiatives are still continuing their ongoing. So it's not just one meeting. Plan A has 50 meetings in and of itself. Zoning 2.0 has however many. Trails has been everywhere. Y'all have seen them everywhere. There's still a ton of other meetings. We don't want to kill you with meetings, but if y'all want multiple ones of these coordinated touch points, just keep in mind you're asking for the commissioner of each of these departments or the head decision maker, the cabinet member for each of these areas to come together and give you a vision of how it all works together, how you can participate in it, what it all means for your community. If you want multiple ones, put that in the recommendation. That's on you.
So, there's a motion on the table. You wanted a recommendation, not a letter of support. So there's a motion on the floor, recommend to send a recommendation for, coordinated engagement of, pending plans, around the vision of Plan A. Is that what you're saying? Okay, is that what you said?
You can work with that.
Yeah.
second,
Is there a second? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Was that Eric?
I second.
Okay.
Kyle.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Hunter?
So my question is, I know we're talking about one big meeting, with all of the, or departments, but would they get to the, concerns that Ms. Phillips, around community, because given everybody's not gonna come to that meeting, so is there some kind of document in writing that can talk about how all of these things align, or map or something to just show the alignment of how they're all connected together and working together? And then that can be something that can be given out versus in comparison to all these 50 other meetings that's going on. Some people don't come to meetings at all, and so we got to just accommodate them as well.
You probably would have to tell them, in our recommendation, what it is we'd like to know. Every one of these things we go to, everybody has all of these maps that are standing up that we have to put the dots on, whatever. But we want them to show us if you're saying that you're going to expand the trails, in this area, how is this going to affect our zoning, since we are working now to rezone this area to MRC, MRC 1, 2, or 3, or something like that. So we don't want them to come and give us just general overviews of what they do. We want them to be able to answer specific questions to show us that this part of Plan A is going to impact this part of the transportation thing. So it's going to be about us, I think.
Yeah, I think
Specify what.
because everybody don't go to meetings, just give you, if you have, if they outside across the street from their house, they don't want to come to meetings to talk about new ones. So being able to give access to them to have knowledge of what's going on without coming to sit in a setting such as this or whatever they have.
So you're saying you want a complete outline of what
If
it
an
is?
outline or something, I don't know, just, they make them figure it out, but something should be put in about written document, written.
So I think it's an and not an or, but I think that, and this might be a big task, but I think that if done, I think we can do, I think the city can do it. What the mayor's done the last few years, Leah, with the neighborhood leaders and those topics, I think we need something very similar. But with that, we need to be able to provide to the city that we will be the people who attend will have to be the foot soldiers to go to the people who are not going to come to the meetings and reach out and get that feedback. But really, it's not just having a meeting where you're giving us information. We need to be able to engage, have those workshops and break out, because it's clear that the coordination is missing. Like, for example, on myself and Miss Lee's part of town, Fairburn Road is getting a complete street. Cascade Road is getting a complete street. GDOT is redoing the intersection of I-20 MLK. Do you know that they're slated to all start those projects at the same time? That is going to turn that area into a parking lot. Like, it's like, there is a lot of exactly.
So the thing is that is the meeting that Nate has suggested, based upon what I'm hearing, is that you all would come, you would invite people, but like Rasheen said, you're supposed to go back and share this information, people. You should be able to synthesize the information for people, so when you're at the SU meetings, are you giving APAB updates and relaying this information, giving synopsis of what's happening and what's being seen and what's being heard? If not, then I behoove you to do so, or at least send a report to the MPU chair so that they can then relay that information.
But it has to be
They don't have enough time. They're not allowed enough time to give that information to MPUs. You have to hammer it home if you're already attending the meetings or if you're already talking to people. And if we have documents to share, so it's not just about, they're already planning all these meetings. How are we getting people there, but also how are we relaying the information, because that's part of what we do. Mr. Schumer, then Mr. Leo, and then
Picking up on
we have to
something,
take a vote.
picking up on something that Mr. Hunter stated earlier, it might be very beneficial for prior to this meeting to reach out with, I'm going to call it position paper or fact sheet, to the same entities that Mr. Hunter was talking about, especially in the Southwest area, where you have something and maybe you can't attend the meeting, but at least you can give feedback to that large group, where you have a list of all of the things that the department heads are going to discuss. And there's no way that you're going to get complete dialogue in one meeting. And I know Leah said that there would be 50 meetings scheduled from here for this group, for that group, and that group. But that again comes down to the same thing of not having all of the information in one place. And that's what we're trying to establish, information where it's in one central place. And maybe this position paper might help. And one of the places I would think of as my home church would be Cascade United Methodist Church, and ask them to publish it in their weekly newsletter for a month. And I know other churches have the same thing, synagogues and temples.
So, Ms. Khalil, we're getting a little off track. Do you have a question about this?
From Nate, Nate, I was also agreeing with Mr. Toomer. We need like a fact sheet specific, like I'm in MPUL, any changes from the different entities that are gonna happen in MPUL, it could be listed out and we can be able to have that dialogue, like a paper. So it have to be some type of work. Like you could look at cutting down some of the meetings and putting the work into getting this paper of talking points for the different MPUs, for the different, also the different entities to go on a doc that we can drive to our MPU chair and to community people.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I was asking possibly if that could be a part
Added to
of,
the.
yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll take the vote. Mr. Penny?
Can you restate the motion?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. So there is a motion from Philip, seconded by Mr. Toomer, to send a recommendation to, it's hard to word this because I'm thinking letter of support, to send a recommendation on coordinated engagement regarding Plan A and also other
Master plans, they're master plans.
Yeah.
Other master
Other
plans.
master plans, thank you.
Why are we making a recommendation where we've got a body here that represents the majority of the city? Is it something that we can request that we need to move forward so we can understand what's going on? Because it seems like all these departments have different agendas and one plan.
So the idea is that Nate has already submitted this request and he's still awaiting feedback. And so this would basically be a second or a confirmation that is needed.
I'm just trying to find the strength of this body here to get things to move forward. Because like he's in Grant Park, 30,000, MPUT,
like 15, 20,000. You can start adding the numbers and we all represent all these people and these communities. Why can't we, I don't want to say demand, but I don't want to make another recommendation. I want.
That's what we do though. We only make recommendations.
That's all we can do?
It's the recommending board. We recommend.
Oh, we
To
recommend.
the city,
Okay.
to whoever, and advice. yeah.
Advisory.
Even if we're representing a large majority of the city?
Advisors.
We have no way to make
There's
any.
no legislative authority from this board that gives advice.
So what you can do though is go before CDHS and make a public comment as well and say, this is what's needed. As a representative of these constituents, this is what is needed in order to move engagement forward and ensure that voices are represented in these master plans.
And if I may, I do plan to talk when it's my turn about the communications plan for your recommendations. I couldn't attend last month's meeting and I wasn't here to correct the misunderstanding around what we were asking y'all to adopt. It wasn't the position paper template. It was actually what you do with the position paper. And I think that speaks to what you're addressing, Lisa. It isn't just writing a recommendation on a piece of paper. It's then going to the people who can implement it, the legislators, and saying, this represents the 15,000 people in my MPU, the 30,000 in his, the whatever, the 500,000 in the city, and we would like for you to sponsor legislation to make this law, or whatever, the recommendation rate.
We'll, like I said, we'll get to that, and we actually brought that up too as well, as that process, but we have a motion on the floor. So,
In favor?
sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes.
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Ms. Lil?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
In favor.
Mr. Dobbs?
Yes.
Mr. Kessler?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Abstain. Ms. Hutchinson?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you. So with that being said, Nate will be here for the rest of the afternoon if you have more questions. The other question is, do you all want to have a work session where Nate and DCP actually come to APAB to discuss more in depth this plan? Or do you want to table that for now pending a discussion with the commissioner heads?
I think they should take the discussion. I'll give the initiative, because we have more questions.
That makes sense. All right, Ms. Morris, you're up. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Bob Morris. I'm representing PUY on TADAC. Are we gonna put some slides up here?
Yes, good slides.
There are a couple of slides. I only have 42 or 43, so.
You can go ahead and get started.
I'll go ahead and get started. So, again, as I mentioned, my name is Bob Morris. I'm from PUY. I serve on TADAC. TADAC for, I'm sure I'm reminding all of you in this room about what it was, but I had no idea what it was. It's Tax Allocation District Advisory Committee, so it was really set up to provide community input to the Beltline in terms of planning, implementation, and design questions to make sure that the community had an input. There's a couple of committees that sit on that. There are a couple of committees within that. There's a finance committee that talks about finance issues, and there's a development committee that also weighs in on developmental kinds of questions. The summer was a pretty slow time in TADAC. There wasn't a lot going on. So what I'm going to give you is basically 30-second more update in terms of what happened in those general meetings. A lot of the activity that's going on right now has to do, obviously, with design of the Beltline, and there's a lot of work going on with signage. The Parks Department is actually in charge of the signage. They're working on what it's going to look like. They're gonna model it off of the signage in Piedmont Park, those of you that are familiar with that. But they're looking at,
This way, point it this way, point it this way, yep.
we already did that. There we go. Slide 43 or 43. You can see some of the things that are going on here with the signage. I won't bother you in terms of details about what's going on with particular signs. I think you probably have a little bit more important work to do this morning to talk about all of those. But suffice it to say, there's a lot of work that is going on. People are trying to realize that we got all these communities, all these streets, all these activities going on in the Beltline. They need some kind of consistent signage. So they're looking at what that might look like. The other activity that was happening with TADAC during the general meeting was an update from the DRC. The DRC is the design review committee that looks at all the SAPs that are being put in for the Beltline overlay district to make sure that all of those are being consistent with all the design recommendations and requirements for the Beltline. See up here, there were 9 that were actually approved throughout the summer, and there are about 8 more that are still in the process of going through that review process. So that's what's going on with TADAC. Can I answer any questions for you? Yes.
So they just give you an update on this design review, they don't share them with you. I didn't know that was part of your purview.
It's not part of our purview. They just updated us on it. Yeah, we weren't waiting. TADAC doesn't weigh in on it.
Well, actually, isn't there a representative from TADAC on the design review committee?
You're asking me a question that I don't have an answer for. So I'm very new to the committee, so that's one that I don't know. I can find out, but I'll get back to you.
There is, I don't know who it is, but there is a representative that's supposed to go to attend.
There may very well be. Sorry, I don't have that answer.
Any other questions?
Mr. Morris, in relationship to the DRC, it has come to our attention that the DRC maintains absolutely no records of the SAPs. Why did it come before it?
That's hard to imagine.
If you put in a formal request for information to the Beltline, as part of public records, public information for a list of SAPs, they will direct you to DCP, and if you then ask the DCP to provide that information, they will direct you back to the DRC. That would be an area where TADAC could begin to make a change as part of its advisory role to advise the Beltline that is something that they could improve upon to make their records public. You can't even find the information online of what those SAPs are, what they look like, what they're considering. The only way is that you have to, meeting by meeting, pull up the agenda.
So let me try to get this straight. There's no record of SAPs within which you named 2 different sets of acronyms. Which one?
For the DRC, within the Beltline itself. DRC does not maintain records of their SAPs.
Beltline.
Correct.
And where's that agenda?
It's published online, on the Beltline's page. You can go see their cities.
I'll look into that. I'll certainly make that recommendation to find out what's going on.
Well,
I don't know.
We did the Beltline SAP from the city, the application, it's not here. I did.
Jim, do you happen to know what the story is with that?
No, I don't know where the records are maintained, but I think that another point that should be raised, and I pointed that out at one of these meetings at least once before, is that the city has never said no to an SAP application. And so, I mean, going over the records to find out what was said about the application is, I mean, it seems like an exercise in futility, because at the end of the day, the answer will be yes, regardless of how many people criticize the content of the application.
That's been our experience, yes.
Yes, so, I mean, I think that, you know, if we're going to complain about something, we need to complain about the fact the city doesn't know how to say no.
Yeah, Jim, I'm going to correct you. The city has said no to an SAP. NPUF did not get an adult bathhouse on Cheshire Bridge. Of course, it took 1900.
Well, I did file a Freedom of Information request with the city planning office and heard that the answer is never no.
I think
Sure.
I think this is a bit out of my
Yeah.
purview. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, because that was the only way we knew. I just want to clarify for those of you that are wondering about SAPs, there's two things you can do. You should subscribe to 9mile.org, which will give you a notification whenever any SAP is issued in DCP, doesn't matter where it is, and you can select by neighborhood or zip code or something, but there's filters for that. The other thing is that there is a crazy part of the SAP ordinance that says that the applicant for the SAP is to send the application to the NPU. It is not something that DCP will do automatically. So you've got to know when they come in so that you can go back immediately to the applicant and get an electronic copy for your file so you can do something with it. I learned the hard way.
The code says, the city code says they are required to mail you a hard copy of the Beltline SAP to the NP chair. Hard copy mail in the physical mail. And provide a certificate, an affidavit of mail. That's part of their application process. For Beltline.
But the mail is.
Beltline SAP.
Did you have another question, Sarah? Okay, Mr. Kessler?
For the Beltlines website, the Beltline TADAC representative to the DRC is currently vacant. I'm just wondering.
Ah.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Morris?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Good to know. All right, moving on to committee reports, the governance committee on September 5th. During that time, we discussed some outstanding things regarding historic preservation from, as that was brought up at our last August meeting. The policy committee will continue working on those historic preservation areas of focus. Anyone is welcome to join their working group meetings if you're interested in that project. We also discussed a couple of appointments, so we'll have those come up momentarily. And then we looked at the strategic plan. One of the things that came up was the onboarding process for new members. We should have a draft to you all by next month. We also discussed having a discussion about the areas of focus. I don't think we'll have time at this meeting, so that's something that we will bring up next month. But we want you all to think through that, review the recommendations from Sizemore Group, and think through and be prepared to discuss that in our October meeting, establishing what our areas of focus will be as a body. Outstanding is that we need to define APAB's role in the plan update and engagement. We just had a robust discussion with Nate. And so you all have made recommendations for engagement, but we need to really think about what our role would be. So if you have recommendations or information that you like about that, to submit about that, please email apabatlanta@gmail.com so that we can discuss it at the next governance committee and make a recommendation for that. The in-person social agenda has been referred to quality of life. And we still need to adopt a communications process. We started talking about this last month. kind of centered on making that decision of per the position paper and knowing that it depends on who we're actually talking to and where it needs to go. So there always needs to be a copy to council in there, but then finding out like which specific department will depend on the paper. And we actually have in this SOP, we have, I guess, a route outline of what that feedback loop looks like. We have not voted on our SOP yet, but there are still pieces that need to go with that. So my question, we have an outstanding question, I think, for DCP is there a later version, I think, than what we have? Because I think I have version 3. I don't know if that's the latest version of this.
Of what? Of the communications loop?
Of the whole document. So we have pieces of the SOP, but I don't know.
Yeah, the SOP is nowhere near complete because we, from the work that we agreed to last year, is that we would work in conjunction with the bylaws committee so that as the bylaws committee identifies the things that it believes it belongs in an SOP and not in bylaws, then we incorporate that into the SOP. But what this board agreed to, I believe either late last year or early this year, is that the bylaws work will be completed first and then the SOPs work will follow.
Gotcha. Thank you for that reminder. So with that being said, we have from out of governance committee, we have an appointment to fill for the elected officials compensation commission. And so we have a candidate, Mr. Timmer. Well, all right, so we'll move on to Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission. Ms. Lee.
Then here I go to the front.
Okay, Frank.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's good to see all of you here as we meet each month. What I'd like to share with you is an article on AJC on yesterday. Welcome to UATL. I don't know if you read it by Mike Jordan. One of the things he mentioned is in order to build communities, you have to care about them. And I think that's essentially what Keep Atlanta Beautiful is, caring about our community. I represent NPUH, and those of you who might not be familiar with that area, we have a lot of areas where there are trees on both sides of the street. And because of that, we have a lot of dumping. At our NPU meeting last Tuesday, we spent an hour talking about where things have been dumped in the community and how we can get them removed. And I think that started my activity in the community, was a dumping on Boulder Park Drive, because that's the street. I live on the corner of Boulder Park and Baker's Ferry. And just driving home and seeing the trash along there, that I got to the point that I decided that I'm going to carry a bag and gloves in my car so I can pick up the trash as I go home and go. So this has always been a very important part of me. And as a native Atlantan, I wanted to make sure that my community was as clean as others. But I just wanted the benefit for this committee that we've not been receiving is that, I don't know if you're aware of the fact that they provide vests, reflective vests, so that if you go out to do a cleanup in your community, you can have people participate and have vests. They also have bags are available, and we can coordinate with the city to pick up those bags at certain spots within your community. So I think that that would help our community and perhaps some of your communities to have a better feel, for their communities and what needs to be done and the like. As my information shares, I don't know whether or not I put on there about the fact that Launchpad, a community organization, has a cleanup on MLK every other month, and they meet at our church. So our church is involved in ensuring that our section of MLK and other sections of MLK are kept clean and things are picked up. We have a running discussion with the Department of Transportation about taking care of the Center Park of our streets. So finally, they had planned something. But cleanup is extremely important to me, and I feel that be representing you on this committee and all the other, all the MPUs, I have opportunity to give you information and share things with you so that we can all make sure that Atlanta is kept clean.
Are there any questions? Go ahead.
Do you happen to know, it's not necessarily for you, but in general, if you work with 311 or code enforcement as well to give a roster of items that are?
Yes. We talked to 311. We talked, they were part of our, meeting on Tuesday as well. So they're aware of it. And they keep telling us, keep getting in contact with us as long as we give you a number, call us back, and which a lot of our neighbors do. So we continue to do that, but we understand. It's just sometimes they're a little slow. Not as 311, but the agency. Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Any other questions?
Are there any other
or comments?
All right, Mr. Ritter.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the recommendation to appoint Mrs. Barbara Reed to the Keeping Atlanta Beautiful Commission.
That's not my second.
Motion been seconded to accept the recommendation for Barbara Lee to to be the APAB representative for the Keep Atlanta Commission. Any questions on the motion or any discussion on the motion? All right, we'll take a vote. Mr. Penny?
In favor?
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Thurman?
Yes.
Hassan?
Yes.
Science?
Yes.
Barnett?
Yes.
Stout? In favor? King?
Yes.
DeLeo?
In favor?
Hunter?
In favor?
Dodd?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Jones abstains. Chinsky?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you. That is the vote. We have 2 people left, so 15 in favor, no oppositions, no abstentions. All right, Mr. Toomer, we are ready for you. Mr. Toomer. Has
I get out to tomatoes.
the governance committee
That's
to
tomatoes.
represent CADAC on the elected official compensation commission. If you're not familiar with that, every few years, there's a commission that's brought forward where they review the compensation of elected officials. The length of the commission is only until the next election cycle. Mr. Toomer has represented APAB before. Mr. Toomer, yes, for.
What did I say? I was drafted, I volunteered, or voluntold. I'd like to serve on the commission because I think my past experience that I found that the salaries for these some of the elected officials was very deplorable in terms of the low amounts. And we also found that several of the elected officials declined to accept our recommendation of advances in salary. And I'd like to reserve to try to make that compensation more equitable to the task that they do. Because, for instance, most of our elected officials do not serve just as meetings. They're basically on 24/7. And I feel that their dedication to the city and to the citizenry has been exemplary. About myself, it's in the bio, kind of go down, and I'm a retired defense industry employee, a longtime resident of Southwest Atlanta. I'm married with 2 children, active in Cascade United Methodist Church, and forms the Men's Usher Board, Executive Committee, Nomination and Leadership Development Committee, and previously taught race-based parenting.
That was.
Oh, that's not it? I thought I could get away with it.
I was gonna say, I don't need to be read to.
Which, well, okay,
Yeah.
well,
I want to hear more of your philosophy and what you had to say.
it'd probably be better if you asked a specific question.
Well, if you're, are you finished with your presentation?
Well, she said she didn't want to be read to,
I
so
said,
yeah.
I didn't have to be, I didn't say, I said it didn't have to be, I'm reviewing.
So Ms. King, do you have a question, and Mr. Martin?
Sorry. How do you go about researching, what are we in terms of comparable cities and?
We're provided a package on that.
Okay.
At least we were the last time. And so we found that we were really behind.
Mr. Martin?
In each election cycle, it seems like there are no shortage of people seeking these jobs. And they're obviously willing to do these jobs for the current rate of compensation. So I guess I have trouble understanding where the issue lies in us undercompensating them.
Well, use an example of yourself and us, for instance. Our compensation package is really great, but we come back, and a lot of us have been here for many, many years. So it's kind of symmetrical or similar to what we do. We enjoy working for our community and helping our community to be better. And I believe that that is the dedication that most of these people, not most, I would say that probably a lot of them would serve without any compensation.
Serve where?
Mr. Hunter?
I have a question about the bio provided. It says here that you are active on the Usher Board. Do y'all wear traditional white gloves on your Sunday?
We're United Methodist.
No further questions.
Per the city council's calendar, the commission has already met twice. Are you aware that they only?
I have not been invited to a meeting, and I'm unaware, and I believe the reason why is because I have not been sent forward.
I was just asking if he was aware that the commission had already got started. And to make the body aware, the commission is already meeting, so having APAB's representative there would be helpful.
Yeah, and that's interesting because when I received the email about this and I asked when they would start meeting, the answer was that they hadn't started yet, so.
First meeting was on September the 9th and the second on the 17th.
Okay, so they're meeting, so just this month. Yeah, okay.
And you know that those occurred, not just that they were scheduled.
They're not producing minutes, so I can't confirm it. They're on the
Sometimes
calendar.
I see an announcement of a meeting that never happened.
It's possible, but I would suspect with these that they already gotten a quorum confirmed before they started.
Mr. Hunter and then Mr. King.
I'm just gonna make a motion, if you are taking a motion this time. I make a motion to approve Mr. Eric Toomer for the election compensation.
Elected
officials compensation commission.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
Rebecca, second.
Thank you.
And an apology, I didn't mean to second.
No tomatoes were thrown, I'm upset about that.
All right, there has been a motion and a second to accept the recommendation of the government committee to appoint consumer to the elected compensation commission. Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Penny?
In favor.
Martin?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Toomer?
Yes.
Hassan?
Yes.
Steins?
Yes.
Barnett?
Yes.
Stout? King?
Yes.
Khalil?
In favor?
Hunter?
In favor.
Dodds?
In favor.
Kessler?
Yes.
Lee? Jones, abstained, Stopchensky? Yes. you. That is 15 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 abstentions. The motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not right, math. 14 approved, 0 opposed, 2 abstentions. Motion approves. Thank you for your service, Mr. Toomer and Ms. Lee. All right, moving on to the agenda, policy committee update.
Madam Chair.
Uh-huh.
A quick thing for the committee, I saw in the schedule of meetings that you sent out, I think it was in August or late July, I'm not sure. It said that there would be an in-person meeting on September 26th, which we're checking to see if everyone's good with that. But I see the meeting here is November 18th, so, which is more up to date.
That Thursday, the 26th meeting is for the governance.
That's what I thought, that's what I was, because it says on the back of the agenda here, next meeting, 11/18. And then working group is 10/3. That's what I'm checking.
That's not correct.
Is the email correct or is this correct?
Yeah, so there is supposed to be an in-person meeting on September the 26th. So this is incorrect.
Okay. And is that here?
No one has responded with a location that if they want to have in their community, so it will be
What day is that?
Thursday, September 26th.
Thursday.
So policy committee,
Good afternoon, I guess. Is it afternoon?
It's 5 minutes.
Early. The policy committee had a gathering of leaders last month, as we did not have an official meeting because we did not make a quorum, but we did, gather and discuss a few things that we want to relate to you all. And also, we do have, some unfinished business from last month that we left with you all to sit with, share, and socialize with the MPUs. So last month, we talked about historic preservation. It was a very spirited introductory conversation. We are inviting you all to our next meeting as it is a working session, a working group, so everyone can attend whether you're on the committee or not. If you would like to have a conversation about that in terms of what are some of the challenges you're seeing, and so we can then start formulating if there's something that we want to present to the Department of City Planning as a path forward, a correction, or a suggestion. So we are still very much on the abstract, figuring out what we see as potential issues, and we're just having that conversation, and we will come back to you all once we have a unified, if we even reach that unified discussion in terms of how we want to do a path forward. Any questions about that? The meeting,
Madam President?
Yes.
Real quickly, if I may, it's not a question, but the Assistant Director of Historic Preservation, Matt Adams, has asked that I make sure the board is aware that he is ready to attend a committee meeting or the full meeting as well to answer any questions that y'all may have.
thank you. And as soon as we want to make sure we make use of that time. So when we are prepared, we will be sure to invite him through you.
Understood.
Another issue that we discussed, historic preservation. The lead for that, if you have any questions or who you might see communication coming from, is going to be Ms. Rebecca King with PUB. If you have anything you want to add to that discussion, I can yield this time.
No, not at this. Well, I will say we did have the meeting at the Preservation Center, and we've asked for a list of historic locations or buildings within the city, and are working to make it citywide where if you know that you have places or lost places, things like that, so that we can all find out what is here now and what could be demolished later.
Are you looking specifically for sites or communities?
Both.
Both, okay.
And just real quickly, because I don't want to workshop this here, one thing that I'm a novice at this, I'm by no far, I am interested in culture and history and the preservation thereof. But one thing that stood out to me was Auburn Avenue is dangerously in, what's the word I want to use?
Peril.
In peril of losing its historic designation. And it is only two places like that that is special in terms of, that has that designation, in the United States. And if you think about in terms of what we have in the other places that are struggling, you might know about Bill Street, Fair Street in Jackson, Mississippi. They are trying to get where we are, but we are dangerously close to losing that local designation because we continue to take away spaces on that corridor. So that's something that I learned from that meeting. So I invite you all to come to that meeting so we can discuss that further and workshop that there. Real quickly to start.
Are you in conjunction with the CDP plan? Are you talking about that as well?
So we're approaching this from a policy point of view. So that is a part of the CDP, but in terms of, we're going to be looking at what we think needs to be done and then looking at the laws that are currently in the municipal code, and then from there having those conversations. So eventually it may bubble up, but we're not there yet. Okay. And the CDP is moving, so we have to catch up, educate ourselves, because we all have different levels of that. And then once we have a unified voice in the direction that this board wants to move in, then we'll start pulling in the different resources, connecting if we need to with the CDP, with Matt Adams and other people. Right now, we're trying to figure out what do we identify as the issue, and then we also want to come to with suggestions on how we think we can fix it.
One example would be a policy on building permits. If it is a historic structure, should it come before the MPU? We get so many other things that come before MPU, so we're looking at policy and that. I would call it more, and he brought up this term, fact-finding mission. We don't know what we don't know, so we're trying to figure all of that out at this point.
Yes.
Is that a good way to say it?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else on that topic?
I didn't hear, when is this meeting?
So our next meeting, Ms. Lee, is going to be, we meet the first Wednesday and the second Thursday of every month. And sometimes that means 2 days in a row, but we still meet. So our next meeting will be October the 2nd, and it's going to be via Zoom. And then we also have another meeting on October the 10th. So we will be meeting, and as of right now, once we go through the assignment, that may change. That is our primary topic that we plan to discuss at our next two meetings.
10th, your meeting. Just saying.
Yep.
Bank of America one, right? The whole
Down right on Auburn.
city.
Talk about Auburn.
Yeah, I was just, we want to meet after it,
What time is your meeting again?
5:30 to 8.
Okay. And I'll set out a quick poll. We have time. We may just move it. But and the thing is, that's why I want to make sure we schedule at least two meetings. We do have 2 meetings in October, and this committee has committed to at least offering that to this body. We will have 2 meetings just in case if we can't go, if there's something coming up, because it's a robust city. There's not much coordination when it comes to calendar, and that's not our fault. It just that is what it is. We have to work through it.
Just when you do the fact finding, conservation and preservation are 2 different things, and sometimes it confuses neighborhoods.
Yes. So we are aware.
Keep that in mind.
And then we also found out that you can have a federal and state designation that usually go hand in hand, but if it's not local, it's not as strong.
Yep. And the city
And they're
can
not
vote to
automatic.
remove it. And then vote to.
This is interesting.
Demolish it.
So I want to be, I want to make use of the time, Madam President, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I just wanted to mention, regarding Auburn Avenue, I would suggest that you all reach out to the Historic District Development Corporation, because they actually are a community development corporation that is a nonprofit that is trying to maintain that work designation amongst Auburn Avenue.
We'll get that from you.
Yes.
Grab that.
The Historic District
It's-
Development Corporation.
Or district. Okay.
And also, Grant Park, we actually were in there when we had our meeting, so I know there's a lot of things going on over there as well, so, we welcome you all to come to the meeting or send a representative as well. I want to shift conversations, if you will. We do have a position paper that is coming out for a vote today. We want you all's consideration, and it is about the Office of Inspector General. And I'm going to yield this time to the lead on that topic, which is going to be none other than Mr. Kyle Petzler himself. There have been quite a few updates since we last met. So, you know, and this is an issue that is a little, that we consider important. And so we may take a little time, Madam President, but it's fast moving and there's a lot of things going on with this. And we want to make sure that you are abreast, because if you're not paying attention, you could have missed quite a few things. So, Congress.
We have 12:03, so.
No, but I'll keep it quick. If there's questions, I'll address them. But we have the position paper, was presented at last month's meeting. The text is the same, but it's been reformatted to the graphic design and presentation template that we have accepted before. The Inspector General, since we sort of last spoke, there has been an additional presentation by the mayor's office, the chief of staff, and such, particularly at a meeting, a regular governing board meeting of the office, the Inspector General and Ethics Office on Thursday. A copy of that presentation is also included in your packet so you can see it. The Inspector General's, the governing board issued two statements voted on at Thursday's meeting, a statement of concern and then a statement of support for the Inspector General as well.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? Before you start this, you said there was a statement of support and a statement of concern.
At Thursday's governing board meeting, governing board voted 8-1 on a statement of support and a statement of concern related to the office of the Inspector General. There has been a temporary task force that has been created by the council at the request of legislation was introduced by the mayor's office. The council approved it to create a temporary task force to review the process and procedures of the ethics office, the Inspector General's office, and the governing board over a course of 45 days to provide recommendations back. Their first meeting has now been scheduled for this coming Tuesday at 3:30. That notice went out after 8 o'clock yesterday. We have these recommendations here. So just one other sort of note. So you can see the mayor's team's sort of presentation that's included here, but from what was discussed and presented at the meeting on Thursday, this office is important. I mean, the Inspector General came and spoke to us, but in the monthly report of what the Inspector General's office has been doing, found that there have been multiple criminal referrals made based upon investigations that were substantiated based upon claims from citizens, claims from city employees. So this office is doing work, not to say there can't be some things that need some improvement, but the office needs to maintain its independence, needs access to the information so it can do its job. And then they are the fact-finding body. They are not the ones ruling and making decisions and pressing charges. They are the ones who are getting the information so that the folks who can then take action, whether it's process recommendation of improvements or criminal charges, if warranted, can be made. So I'll leave it at that, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions, Mr. Kessler?
I had a comment.
Amy was at the meeting.
I was at
Gave
the
public
meeting.
comment.
And thank you for giving public comment, so.
Hope it was okay. Gotcha. My head is about to explode after that guy went on for 90 minutes. It occurred to me while we were sitting here when Kyle sent out this thing that they are this task force is required to have 3 public meetings, but I don't think that this legislation called for any public input at these public meetings. Do we have any yes or no qualification on that or clarification on that?
The agenda that's been posted does not have a public comment period. This is the first organizational meeting that's scheduled on Tuesday. There is no state law or city ordinance that universally requires public comment at meetings.
So a public meeting just means it's in the public. It doesn't mean.
It means it needs to follow the Open Meetings Act, so it has to have proper notice, that sort of stuff. But there's no requirement in general that public meetings have to have public comment. So many bodies will adopt that as their own rule or amend their agenda to include it, but there, from what we've seen for the agenda so far, there's not a place for
They
public
can meet
comment.
the requirements of the ordinance to have 3 public meetings in 45 days by announcing it at 8 o'clock on Friday night, and having them during the working days, 2 work days later, and have no public input, right?
That would technically meet the requirements of the
Okay.
Georgia Open Meetings Act,
Great.
yes.
Thank you.
In my non-legal opinion, yes.
So the position paper references peer review of OIG. What this task force is not made up of inspectors general, but sort of people swept up from the community, right?
Swept up from the community, there are no quote unquote community representatives on the task force, but they are judges, attorneys, corporate leaders, that group of folks, yes.
Would deem them to be peers.
No, I mean, the references in the document that you have before you is that there is an association of inspectors general. They have a peer review process where folks from one city or state or county will help review and provide advice to other similarly entities across the country. That is not what's there. There has been a request made by our inspector general to have a peer on this task force. One of the leaders of this association, inspectors general, says that they stand ready to provide assistance in whatever way, whether that's serving on the committee or being given enough notice that they can have someone attend the meeting, we shall see. But that request has been made both by the inspector general and a willingness has been made by this association of inspectors general.
But, I mean, the city has not responded to that.
The council has not changed their legislation stating who the members of this task force are.
Okay, and we are not specifically addressing the task force in this position paper, are we?
This was all drafted prior to the task force's creation. If we would want to amend it, we could, but since that came up sort of during the course of the month and we hadn't had a chance to brief people on it, and we did not have a quorum to have a meeting, the position paper has just been changed to meet the template.
So is it then your feeling that it is more important that we take a position on this soon rather than addressing these new developments?
I think since the task force is meeting, it's helpful to at least get this stuff through. If we think we can quickly reach consensus on some other sort of change, I think we can do it. But I would not want to, let's hold all of this for another month, knowing that the task force is meeting on Tuesday.
Right. And also the task force has a timeline. Can you share that?
45 days from the approval of the legislation. So we're roughly 15 plus days in.
So,
Are you done?
Go ahead.
No, I'm picking up on what Jim said. I do agree this is extremely time sensitive and I would very much like to get this on the record. But I think we could easily edit it to add points about the task force that, namely, the task force should include subject matter experts, the peers that we're talking about here, and also I think it should include representation from the public, whether that's APAB rep or whoever, but the public is not included in this task force that's supposed to be looking out for the good of the public. And the whole point of this thing is for the public to have confidence in city government. The public's not part of this task force. So I guess I'm making a motion to add points, or can I do that? Are we not adopting?
so the only thing about that is based on our bylaws, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't have it in front of me, you have pulled up, we would have to, it would then have to go back to committees. And
We don't have a process. None of that stuff's laid out.
Okay.
Yeah. Only thing that requires holding is a bylaw. But before you make a motion, I would put forth that we adopt this as is. That way, regardless of what time we have to close the meeting, whatever, we know this is done. And then as time permits, we can draft up fairly quickly another statement regarding the task force, its composition, notification of meetings, public comment, that's addressing the task force specifically versus this broader statement of support for the IG and their work. So I would say
You want me to withdraw my motion?
it wasn't.
Your motion wasn't seconded.
Seconded, recognized, but
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I was going to make a motion that we adopt this as written.
I would second that.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin to accept the position paper coming out of the policy committee, office of the inspector general and the inspector general. It's been seconded by Scott Hassan. Is there any question or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Kenny?
Favor?
Martin?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes.
Toomer?
yes.
Hassan?
Yes.
Steins?
Yes.
Barnett?
Abstain.
Stout?
Favor.
King?
Yes.
Doyle? In favor. Hunter? Dodds?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Jones abstains. Sumchinsky?
Yes.
Okay.
13-3.
13 in favor, 0 opposed, and 3 abstentions. Motion passes. So with that being said, this is the communication process that we talked about earlier. We will send this to the Office of the Inspector General, the Government of the Office of the Inspector General, City Council, the Mayor's Office, and do we need to send this to the Office of Ethics as well?
This is just about the inspector general. The task force covers both, but this is just about the inspector general.
Okay. Anyone else that we need to include in that communications? Oops, all right, thank you. Anything else coming out of policy committee?
Do we want to get into another potential motion on the task force?
Dr. Stout,
What?
did you want, there was a question.
I wasn't listening,
I know.
I'm sorry.
Do we want to put forth the recommendation that the task force be amended to include community members and peers, that the meetings be conducted in the evening, and that they allow public comment?
Oh, hell yeah.
Was that a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
I second that.
Is that something we are sending back to committee to draft a letter, or is that simply something that we are
I think we can make it.
endorsing as a concept and you will analyze the language of it?
I think we can make it fairly simple.
Okay.
The APAB recommends that the temporary task force to review the procedures and policies of the Inspector General, Office of the Inspector General, Ethics Office, and their governing board be amended to include community members and peers, that meetings be conducted in the evening, and that public comment is accepted.
So that's a lot.
Quick question.
Hold on, Mr. Timmer. There has been a motion by Ms. Stout. I'm presuming, seconded by Mr. Hassan. Can you repeat it for APAB to send a letter of recommendation to, this would be then City Council, policy committee? I know we're almost done, y'all, so we can. Are we sending this recommendation to City Council since this is legislated?
They're the only ones who can, I mean, we should copy the task force as well, but it's the council that can take action.
All right, so the motion is to send a letter of recommendation to the city council, with recommendations regarding increasing the ability for public participation in the task force as outlined, as Kyle mentioned, and those points will be outlined. So, a public representative, public comment, and having, meeting times that are outside of work hours. Is that summary correct?
Yes, I would add into, I don't know how much notice we want before the meetings, but as Amy mentioned, posting notice after 8 o'clock on a Friday for a workday meeting on a Tuesday is not in the spirit of much notification. So we have a preference of 48 hours or 72 or a week or
72.
That's
72.
exactly the policy that the AFC follows with this.
We have to finalize our NPU agendas a week in advance, even if they're a standing meeting every month. Come on, people. Nate's here telling us about things in December. They don't want.
All right, so we have.
Don't be abusing yourself over there.
You're on camera.
Recommendations around the time, meeting notifications, public, including public comment in the task force composition.
I also mentioned peers per Jim's comment.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Subject matter experts are their peers, right?
I just wasn't sure if you explicitly stated that it wasn't just a community members, but also peers.
All right, any, any discussion or questions on the motion? Mr. Junior?
Would we be excluding the first meeting or because it was already set?
I mean.
In essence, should the language be going forward after the first meeting?
Deliver this to them on the first meeting.
Or not necessary,
I
okay.
don't think that's, I don't think that level is
Right.
necessary.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on the motion?
Do we add public comment to?
Yes. Any other questions or discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Penny? Martin?
Yes.
Zerman?
Yes.
Schumer?
In favor?
Hassan?
In favor.
Steins?
Yes.
Barnett?
Yes.
Stout?
There.
Key? Yes. Leo?
In favor?
Hunter?
Abstain.
Kessler?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Jones abstains, Sapchinsky?
Yes.
All right. Who's the counselor?
Without Dodge, you have 13-2.
All right, so the motion passes, for this letter of recommendation, 13 approved, 0 opposed, and then 2 abstentions. All right, anything else from the policy?
No, ma'am, Madam President, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you all for your hard work on both the historic preservation and on this position paper and the work that is leading into that. I know it's taken a lot of time, energy, it has been a complex situation to navigate, so I appreciate you all for that. And I appreciate you, Ms. Stout, for making public comment at that OIG governing board meeting last week. Thank you very much. Quality of life.
Sure. So.
All right, it's 12:22.
Yeah, I'm quick. We don't have anything for today because we had a ton of scheduling issues and decided, not to have a meeting because otherwise it would be way too short notice. That's not fair to folks. So what we're going to do is compensate for that by having 2 meetings next month. Our regular scheduled meeting on the 7th of October, and we're probably going to try to, I'm hoping an in-person one before the next APAB meeting, but after our regular schedule. So we're charged with the, the social event creation for, I believe, December. And we're going to take a look at historic preservation in the context of zoning 2.0. And also partially from a policy standpoint, partially from a zoning standpoint of making it the, hopefully, default, or if any structure or area is on a federal or state or both district, it automatically gets added at the local level because the protections don't apply. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless. So that's what we're going to take a look at from a feasibility perspective of zoning 2.0, which I know zoning 2.0 allows a lot more leeway for the creation of historic, well, quasi-historic districts that aren't, say, like the Grant Park Historic District, but allow some form of protection and preservation. So it just makes it easier, not a year-long process. We're going to look at how this can tie into that in zoning 2.0 specifically, and partially with the CDP, but in this case, the zoning 2.0 is more important to focus on. So that's what we'll be looking at. I've already been looking into, and from the module 1 perspective of zone 2.0, but we're not going to fully know how this can work until the, what's it called? The administration portion of zone 2.0 is released in February. And to add to that, I was still under the impression that zone 2.0 was moving forward with module 2 and its next meetings on September 30th. That is not the case. I found out at the NPW meeting from my planner, on Wednesday, that zone 2.0 process, as Nate mentioned, is being moved back from September, basically moving the whole process back 3 months. So we thought this was going to be much more fast tracked. No, we have significantly more time to focus on module 1 and prepare for module 2, which is mostly parking. So that's good to know that we had quite a bit more time, but I was surprised that we had that much of a delay in the 2.0 process, because that wasn't announced. It was only mentioned when I inquired about it at the meeting and mentioned some dates, and then the planner chimed in and said, oh, that was, oh, we had to move it, but we didn't know about that. We didn't get a, email blast from the city saying, hey, we're not going to have a meeting, because I was waiting for all the details and for module 2 to be posted and nothing. So just so you'll know, that process moved back 3 months. So we have significantly more time to deal with this than we did before. But so yeah, we're planning to meet on the 7th, and then we'll try and pick maybe an in-person time, maybe at the Preservation Center, since we love David Mitchell. So yeah, that's what we're planning on. And the first meeting will be on Zoom as usual.
Any questions for the Quality of Life Committee? In regards to the social agenda, Lisa or Sky, do you need any help with that outside of your Quality of Life Committee?
We can handle it, but we'll take volunteers.
Yeah, we'll take volunteers. Try it. But if anyone wants to help, I will not turn down help.
Anything coming out else coming out of Quality of Life?
Sorry, say
Anything else coming out of Quality of Life?
no, but I did have a procedure question. I saw there was a
Yes.
little form for ATAG 3.
Yes, sorry, my apologies. So I received an email Friday, yes, Friday, from Kay Stevenson, who is the APAB representative for ATAG. In your packets, you will see a final report. The last ATAG meeting was in August. She is available for questions if you have any, and or any feedback. She said that she's monitoring the legislation. There have been 2 pieces of legislation that have been put forth from ATAG over the course of the years. Those have not been voted on or finalized, so that's what they are trying to do. Any further questions?
What's in our packet?
A final report from Kay Stevenson to the ATAGs for.
Right, yeah.
You don't have it?
It is in there.
Here we go, yes, I do.
You got it? Okay. All right, we are at 12:27 tonight. I'll entertain a motion to extend the meeting, please, so we can take through the CCRD appointment and an update from city planning.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. For house.
It's in the meeting
5 minutes.
until,
12:40?
45.
let's say 10 minutes. 37 or 45.
Oh, yeah, Leah hasn't done her report.
She's gone.
Okay, just say 15 minutes if we finish earlier.
Yes.
We're in good shape. Let's
No,
not
we have to
debate
use all the time
15
we're-
minutes.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Stout? Yeah. All right, there's been a motion to extend the meeting until 12:45. Is there, are there any questions or discussion on the motion? Any objections? Seeing none, the motion is approved by unanimous consent. All right, anything else coming out of Quality of Life Committee?
No.
All right, any new items for consideration from the board? Somebody, Mr. Hunter?
The Mormona, audit.
Expand.
So if you all have been paying attention there, the city of Atlanta requested, and I believe maybe even paid for an audit of the Mormona funds for the last iteration. There was a presentation, there has already been a draft of the, there has already been a draft of the audit and the findings. There has been discrepancy in terms of the formula, and then I think MARTA that's just suggested, I'm not sure they have already, they want to audit the auditors.
Oh.
Okay, so in terms of making sure that they use the proper information so that the numbers are accurate. But I think that we need to pay attention because this is an additional tax that we pay to that fund, and there seems to be a discrepancy with both sides. And the idea is not to pick a side, is to look at the information that's been presented by both sides and formulate an opinion. If we think we need to take a position and to bring forward, that is what I would suggest. But right now, it will be, I guess, a fact-finding mission as well. But I think it's something that we need to pay attention to.
So I'm gonna vacate my seat at this time and have Ms. Kopchinsky lead this session.
Are there any other comments?
No, you can assign it if we agree to it, just to a committee.
But it's been assigned previously, but I don't know if it was on the same content.
Oh, what was it me then? I guess Shaw, that have Martin?
Yeah.
Okay. But I guess we can just add that to it, yeah.
It's been assigned to Quality of Life.
That's what Sierra just said. I know it's not, yeah.
I don't know, so.
I know it's not on my committee, because yeah, so it has to be done.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, the 5 points, so,
I mean, we can take-
yes, are you saying expand it and then give it to quality of life? To look into?
If we want to just make MARTA as an umbrella as us. Well,
I'd rather you all focus on certain things, because MARTA that can be a rabbit hole.
The 5 points project is,
it's just.
It's very different
It's
than
definitely
everything
cost right
else.
now. So.
so why don't we make this a new project and assign it to Quality of Life?
Sure.
And can you give us an update at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Any other comments? Thank you.
So we have unfinished business regarding the ACRB Atlanta Citizens Review Board appointment. Last month, we had 2 candidates. This is for the seat for G through MPU's G through L. We had 2 people come before us at the previous meeting, Mr. Cheyenne Warren and Mr. Mario Wiley. We discussed it in governance committee, and the recommendation coming out of governance committee is for Mr. Cheyenne Warren to be the appointee for ACRB. Any discussions on the recommendation?
Motion to accept?
I second that.
I mean, let's come out of committee on the beginning of the motion.
That's right, the motion is out of.
Maybe just vote it up or down.
All right, so we will take the vote now. Well, we did a motion for the other 2, and those were coming out of the committee as well. So just be consistent for today, technically we don't have to, but, so Toomer motion, and then,
I'll second.
Hassan already seconded.
Okay.
All right, any discussion on the motion?
Glad you're gonna fill this seat. It's been a while.
All right, so we will take a vote. Penny?
In favor?
Martin?
Abstain.
Mr. Curry?
In favor.
Hassan?
Yep.
Science?
Yes.
Barnett,
Yes.
Stout,
In favor.
King,
Yes.
Belleville,
In favor.
Hunter,
In favor.
Scott,
Abstain.
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Jones abstained, Stepchinsky.
Abstain.
Right, so we have 10, 11 in favor and 5 abstentions. No opposition, the motion passes. We'll give notification to both, Mr. Wiley and Mr. Moran. Just want to make a note that this is no reflection on anyone's ability or capacity to serve. And that we actually discussed, making a recommendation to any vacant position holders that, if applicable, Mr. Moran could be a representative. We thought that there was a city council seat open, but is actually the mayor's office, and 18 to 30. Ms. Hawkins Lynn, who's the APAB member, serves on ACRB as a council representative. Her term is expired, and it says it's confirmation, so I don't know if that just has to go through legislation or if there are term limits for the position, so we'll find out.
Madam Chair, just a question. Do we know if we have the base form filled out from the candidate?
No, we have to take control first, it's let them know this bill on the base.
Would it be appropriate to make a motion that we get this done as fast as possible? Because I know that board has, they're dangerously approaching their form issues because they have quite a few open, expired seats, but also open. So would that be inappropriate at this time? Or you can just?
I don't think it's necessary
Okay.
because they've been updated that we're taking a vote today.
Okay.
So they're either watching or anticipating service. All right, since there's no DCP updates from Leah, are there any announcements? Ms. King?
It's not really an announcement, but a question that can be answered after. I don't want to go over our time, but I asked for a memorandum of understanding of the Parks Department, and I was told to go through the Freedom of Information. So it was on a certain park, and I am just putting that out there. Is that something that we should have to request through Freedom of Information as an MPU chair and or as an APAB member? Answers after.
Question. Mr. Hunter?
I also have a question as well, and I walked into a conversation about this, and it actually deals with SAPs in terms of notification. And we probably should have, maybe can assign that to a committee if we need to at a later time. But I think there needs to be some discussion and maybe looking into in terms of how we can make that process more efficient. Because there's a problem with SAPs in terms of not with SAPs, let me rephrase that. There's a problem with notification of a SAP happening in your NPU if you don't meet one of those special requirements where you're supposed to receive that notice. I know my chair has complained about happened to be at the meeting and there's something on the agenda for my NPU and he had no idea. And the person was trying to skirt around some things because they're active, but they know who to talk to about different things in our community. And they just chose not to do the SAP application.
Mr. Kessler?
Yes, with my Center for Civic Innovation hat on, we had had a gathering at our office last month, and a few folks were able to attend related to our interest in furthering our MPU initiative work and recommitting to the purpose of the MPU. Because that meeting didn't have great attendance, we plan on reaching out and trying to schedule individual conversations with MPU chairs, APAB members, whatever else. So just be prepared for an email heading your way from myself or from another staff member. And then we'd like to be able to come and present to APAB, similar to Park Pride or anyone else has been as of late, just to give everyone an update and get feedback on that work. So if you have any questions, feel free to chat with me afterwards.
Any other announcements or meeting? Ms. Lee?
Shit, I'm sorry. I missed it, Leah's not gonna report today, because I had two questions that came up at our NPU meeting. I want clarification on, I was gonna ask her, what should I do, just call her? Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Is that it? Ms. Galil? All right.
Question. Would it not be better if she asked the question at this forum? That way it would be on record and it might benefit all of us. And then the answer to be determined later.
Because it does impact everybody.
What's your question?
Well, there are two. One was, we were on the impression, well, our officers were on the impression that we had to vote on our bylaws, Tuesday night. And normally what we do is do the presentation, and we actually have a vote, of course, before the 30th. Has that changed now? Is no longer the 30th that our bylaws do into?
That's still 30.
Yes, it's still 30. Still the same.
Yes.
All right, well, that's what I told them, as far as I knew nothing would come up at APAB about a change, so it is still the 30th, okay. And secondly, and I have to see a moment, I'll get it in a second. Oh, the attendance. At one time, our kind of current MP chair, but our previous chair said that she was told that we were required to attend 8 meetings of APAB in order to be able to receive the grants. Is that still?
Yeah.
That's no longer.
No longer.
All right. I didn't think so, but because I thought, yeah, okay, thank you. That was all.
Any other questions, announcements? All for your time.
Motion to
Take a
adjourn.
motion.
Second that.
All right.
Well, that came out of committee, it didn't.
Good God. Maybe we should do it.